In the annals of history, few phenomena captivate as much as the life and death of a language. But what if a language didn't truly die? What if, instead, it transformed, evolved, and then, against all odds, was deliberately resurrected? This is the extraordinary tale of Latin, the ancient tongue that once commanded an empire, then fragmented into a mosaic of new voices, only to be recalled from the shadows, reborn as a cornerstone of modern thought. Join us as we unravel the dramatic saga of Latin, from the heartbeat of Rome to its whispered echoes in our contemporary world. Our journey begins over 2 millennia ago, not in the marble halls of imperial Rome, but in the humble plains of Latium. Here, among pastoral tribes, a rustic dialect emerged, known as Old Latin. It was a language born of farmers, soldiers, and traders, lacking the philosophical depth of Greek, yet robust and pragmatic. As the small city-state of Rome began its improbable ascent, its language, Latin, became synonymous with its growing power. Each conquered territory, each newly established legionary camp, brought Latin to distant lands, laying the groundwork for its unprecedented spread across the known world. With Rome's empire stretching from Britannia to Mesopotamia, Latin became the lingua franca of administration, law, and military command. However, this wasn't the refined literary Latin of Cicero or Virgil. Instead, a simpler, more vernacular form flourished: Vulgar Latin. Spoken by soldiers, merchants, and common citizens, Vulgar Latin diverged significantly across the vast empire. It was less grammatically complex, more pragmatic, and readily absorbed local influences. This everyday Latin, distinct from its classical counterpart, sowed the first seeds of what would become its eventual demise as a unified spoken language. The Roman Empire, once an unbreakable monolith, began to fracture. The division into Eastern and Western empires in 395 AD marked a critical turning point. In the East, Greek remained the dominant language, a legacy of Hellenistic influence. Latin's presence waned dramatically, relegated to administrative niceties rather than daily discourse. In the West, however, Latin still held sway. This linguistic schism mirrored the political and cultural divergence, weakening Latin's universal hold and isolating its various spoken forms. The linguistic landscape was preparing for a profound transformation. The 5th century AD unleashed a storm upon the Western Roman Empire. Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, and Ostrogoths carved up its territories, culminating in the symbolic fall of Rome in 476 AD. This cataclysmic period was fatal for Latin's uniformity. Communication broke down, imperial infrastructure crumbled, and isolated communities developed their own localized versions of Vulgar Latin. Without a centralizing power to enforce linguistic standards, the distinct regional accents and grammatical variations began to solidify, drifting further apart with each passing generation. The unified spoken Latin was truly entering its twilight. From the ashes of unified Latin, a remarkable linguistic phenomenon began. Across the former Western Roman provinces, the myriad forms of Vulgar Latin had diverged so much that mutual intelligibility slowly vanished. By the 8th and 9th centuries, distinct, recognizable languages had emerged: Proto-French in Gaul, Proto-Spanish in Hispania, Proto-Italian in the Italian peninsula, and Proto-Portuguese, among others. These Romance languages, direct descendants of Latin, were Latin's living legacy, yet they signified the effective death of Latin as a commonly spoken, unified tongue. A mother language had given birth to her daughters. As the Romance languages blossomed, classical Latin itself retreated. It ceased to be a language learned at one's mother's knee. Instead, it became a scholarly language, preserved within monasteries and the nascent Christian church. While the common folk spoke their evolving vernaculars, monks meticulously copied ancient texts, preserving Latin's grammar, vocabulary, and literature. This period, often mislabeled the Dark Ages, was ironically critical for Latin's survival, transforming it from a living, breathing language into a hallowed, academic one, awaiting its rediscovery. The Roman Catholic Church became the most powerful guardian of Latin. From the sacraments to theological discourse, the Mass to papal decrees, Latin remained the undisputed language of the Church for over a millennium. This sacred function ensured its meticulous preservation and continued study. It provided a unifying linguistic thread across a politically fragmented Europe, allowing scholars and clerics from different lands to communicate. The Church didn't merely preserve Latin, it imbued it with an almost divine authority, cementing its status as an immutable, universal language of faith. The intellectual fervor of the Renaissance, beginning in the 14th century, ushered in Latin's glorious resurrection. Humanist scholars, eager to rediscover the wisdom of ancient Greece and Rome, meticulously studied classical texts, striving to emulate the elegance of Cicero and the poetic power of Virgil. This was not the Church Latin of the Middle Ages, but a deliberate, conscious revival of classical Latin. It became the international language of scholarship, science, philosophy, and diplomacy across Europe, creating a common intellectual ground for figures like Erasmus, Copernicus, and Newton. Even as national languages gained prominence, Latin maintained a formidable presence through the Age of Enlightenment and beyond. It provided a stable, unambiguous vocabulary for the burgeoning fields of science and medicine. Carl Linnaeus's system of biological classification, binomial nomenclature, is entirely in Latin. Legal codes, botanical descriptions, and anatomical terms worldwide still bear its indelible stamp. Its precision and universality, untainted by the shifting idioms of everyday speech, made it indispensable for clarity and longevity in these specialized domains. Today, Latin is rarely spoken as a native tongue, making its death seem definitive. Yet, its presence is undeniable. From the mottos of institutions, e pluribus unum, to legal phrases, habeas corpus, and scientific names, Latin is embedded in our modern world. It is a fundamental component of the Romance languages and a significant contributor to English vocabulary. Furthermore, it continues to be studied by scholars, priests, and enthusiasts globally. Latin didn't truly die. It evolved, adapted, and established an enduring legacy, proving that some languages are simply too powerful to ever truly fade away. From a rustic dialect of ancient Latium to the universal language of a vast empire, Latin underwent a profound transformation. It died as a spoken, unified tongue, giving birth to a vibrant family of Romance languages. Yet, through the Church, scholarship, and conscious revival, it ascended to an even greater status, the immortal language of learning, law, and enduring human intellect. Latin's journey reminds us that the life of a language is not always a linear path to extinction, but often a complex metamorphosis, leaving an indelible mark on the very fabric of civilization.